In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to control your ATEM Mini Pro or ISO fully manually using a Stream Deck and Companion software. If you're not familiar with Companion, it's some software that runs on a computer, and if you add in some hardware, which is a Stream Deck, then you can get some tactile control similar to some of the functions that the bigger ATEM switches would have. The Companion software that actually runs it is completely free. You can also run that on your computer, tablet, or phone. And this layout that I'm demonstrating today is available as a free download. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to look at today. And you can still maintain access to your native Stream Deck profiles. All right, we're going to take a deep dive into this panel so that you can understand all of the ins and outs of how to get the most out of it. The first thing to look at is just the general layout. There's 3 levels to this design. The home page has as much as I've fitted on here as possible, and everything is going to bring you back to here. This plus item here will take you to page 2, which has menu, which will then take you to sort of a third layer where you can have things like keys and audio and all that kind of control. And in the top left-hand corner here, there's always going to be this X button, which will bring you back to the home screen. And just so that when you're live and things are going very quickly, you've got this button, this X here, which is always going to take you back home. All right, first up, let's take a look at the input. So along here, we've got the program input, we've got a preview input. But what's really cool is if you hold down the preview row, it's going to change your upstream key input. So if I press that for half a second, it's going to go to yellow, and the yellow is going to show me that I've now got input 2 selected, which in this case was a very bad choice because I have selected my camera for the Stream Deck. So I'm going to go back to my original green screen. This button here will put black to preview, or color 1, 2, or bars. So if you hold that down for half a second, it'll change through so that you can just quickly access some of those palettes and bring them up into your preview and then push them across into the program. Got your auto button here, which is going to fade across. And if you long press on the auto button, it's actually going to bring you through to the mix page where you can choose what sort of transition you want. You can hold down the button for different amounts of seconds. So if you wanted to do a 10-second mix, you could do that. And it's going to be very slow, very tedious. Let's change that back to 1 second. Let's get on with that. Continuing through the main page, we have some VLC control buttons. If you hit the Q button, it's actually going to load up the Q playlist into the preview on input 4, and you can cycle through these. So you can get 3 here, back to 1. I've only got 3 videos in here at the moment. It's going to show you the remaining seconds here. And then you can either play, or if you hold it down, it's going to play the video and then transition across to program. So let's give that a go now. And you can see it's switched the program in preview, and it's off and it's rolling. I can see the remaining time here. And whenever I'm ready to come back to whatever I want, maybe I'll put 1 into preview here. 20 seconds. There's a bit of a time left there, isn't there? All right, so then we're going to go auto, fade back, and it's going to take the music out as well. Long press on the Q button will actually shortcut you to take you to the VLC page itself, which is going to have a lot more control, and I'll go through that briefly. And then the stop button is actually going to get rid of the VLC from your full screen so you can get back control of your desktop and use it for other applications like H2R. Above the VLC controls is the downstream key and the media pool. So a simple press will toggle the downstream key on and off in the preview section for a next transition. So if you wanted to cut, it would push that across, or cut, bring it back. Or if you press and hold, it's going to push that to air. And likewise, if you push and hold it again, it's going to bring your downstream key off air. Next to it is toggling through the media pool. So it's going to show me I'm on still 1, and it gives the name here. And so I can actually cycle through that and find what I want in the media pool. And if you're having trouble finding that because there's 20 images in there, just long press, and it's going to change the panel, and it's going to show you everything that's available in your media pool up to still 20. And a couple of other functions that I will show you later. Above this is the keying section. So on your homepage, we've got key next, transition, and then key on air. So I'm going to change this. So what you'll see in my multi-viewer display here is at the moment I've got the the yellow means that it's going to change on the next transition. So if I do a cut, I'm actually bringing my key off air and I'm putting the preview onto air. If I want to keep that on, I can hit the key button again, and then both are red. So if both are red as I cut, it's not going to pull the key off air. The key is going to stay on. Or if I hit the on button, it's going to bring that off. So I can toggle the key on and off like that. I can hit the on button if I want it just to be on and stay on. Or I can actually long press the key and it will do the same function as the on, which is going to push it both to air. I just put the on button here because it's helpful, I think, having the visual feedback of if they're both red or if they're yellow and red. For example, if it's yellow and red, then the next cut or auto that I do is actually going to transition it. Having this ability to choose the key on the fly as you need is great, because this is normally something that you would have to choose either or of when you set it up. Within the ATEM setup software, you would have to, within the picture-in-picture keyer effect, is drop with transition or stay on with transition, and that would affect the panel itself in terms of when you turn that key on and off. But using the Stream Deck, you can choose whether or not you want that key to stay on when you're cutting, or whether you want it to be dropping when you transition, so that you can go between like this sort of build like I've got, where I've got a green screen behind me and then a media pool background. But then if I want to cut to something I'm showing on the computer input, I don't want my face over the top of it like this, and I want to be able to drop it. So that's what makes that so powerful. The next two buttons are your fly keys. So this is more of the operational side of it. I can run to A, I can run to B. Perhaps I wanted to bring up something on screen that I'm showing in a PowerPoint presentation, and I can move myself out of the way. I can also, if I press and hold, I've got infinite and full. So from here, I could like go out, or I could press it again to come back into A. Or I can press and hold and I'll go up to full. So if I want to be on full screen, if I want to go down to B, run to A, go to infinite, and I could just jump straight back to B if I wanted to. There's a lot of control that you have just within these two buttons between pressing or long press. Next up, I've got two macros in the upper right-hand corner of the home page, where there's two modes that I use frequently. There's a pattern mode and then a Chroma mode. I'm on the Chroma mode at the moment. This is going to toggle between Chroma and pattern. So if I press this, all right, so now I'm on pattern. So what this has done, if you look at the multi-viewer, is it's set up so I've got camera one going to air, and in my preview, I'm ready to present a picture-in-picture effect of something on the computer. And this button here has got an X just to show me that I don't need to use it. And the way that I would transition is just cutting between that. If I want to present something on the PowerPoint or if on the computer, and I can move my flying key around if it was in the way. The other mode is a Chroma mode. So that's going to jump my input angles around. Selecting this mode has turned on the Chroma key. It's changed the input selections. And then this button is turned on now. So at the moment I'm in picture-in-picture mode. So I'm here and I'm presenting something from the computer. But if I press that, it's going to run to full, and it's going to bring me up to my sort of composited background. So for example, if I was doing an edit session with a client where I want to greet them on a webcam with this angle, I can then present to them by hitting this button. It's going to go to picture-in-picture effect. So that has brought in my edit timeline. I can go through that and do whatever editing with them. And then when I want to speak with them, I can jump back. And the reason I've got this transition in here rather than a cut is because the key is staying on air. And if it was just a simple cut, it would jump. So you'd get the background transition and the key wouldn't go at exactly the same time. So I just tried to build in this like really quick transition to make it seamless. So it's not like too obvious, but it just keeps it smooth. So they're the two macros there. If they're useful for you, that's great. If you don't need them, then you can free it up for some like menu shortcuts or maybe some macros of your own. So the top menu here is basically menu shortcuts. And then this plus icon is going to take you to menu 2, where you're going to see these replicated across here. You've got audio control here, streaming and record. You can jump into here. I'm recording at the moment using this actual ATEM Mini Pro ISO. Not streaming at the moment, so you can see that there. VLC shortcut key. You could change these if you want. And you're going to have the times here. So I'm 20 minutes into this record here. I'm going to see my streaming. You can see how much is left on the VLC if you've got a video loaded up. And then you've just got time of day here, just so if you're approaching a show, you can say, maybe 3:30 you're going to go on air, and you go, I got 9 minutes. Just make it very easy, very visual. It's all there right in front of you. Also, you've got just like the visual confidence that the show is recording because it's red and the numbers are ticking over. All right, let's take a look at what I'm calling Hyperdeck, which is basically using VLC to playback videos. I showed you 3 buttons on the home page, which is just to give you sort of basic control over queuing up a video, playing it, transitioning to it, and stopping it, and being able to see the visual feedback of how much time is left on that video. But there's a whole page dedicated to VLC, which you can access either by long pressing the Q button here or by the shortcut button up here, or in the menu. It's going to be in the same spot. Hit that, brings you into this page. So within the VLC page, I've tried to carry over as much of the original layout from the home screen, and I've tried to do this across the whole board of the way I've designed this panel. Here you've got the stop, cue, play, and auto roll buttons as before. You've got your cut, your auto. Here you've got audio 4, which is what I'm bringing this in on. So you can see at the moment the orange is audio follows video, but I can also change it to be always on, or I could turn it off. I'm going to long press and I'll go back to audio follows video. Down the bottom, we've got 10 slots reserved for your playlists. So if I jump over to the VLC media player, I'm just going to grab 3 of them, drag them in here, some drone videos that I've got, and you'll notice that these 3 videos have actually been filled in these playlists. You've still got the number in there, and you've got the title of each track. You can jump in the same video twice, so I might just keep doing that, do a few more of those, and you'll see all these slots get filled up. You can actually also add in YouTube videos very easily. If you're at an event and you have a client who last minute says, hey, can you play this video for me? By the way, it's on YouTube. Rather than bring up a web page, if you just go to the video, here's one of me previously, copy the link, and then go back to VLC and go to Open Network. Just paste in the URL there, go open like that. And it's going to bring up this little link here, which is kind of ugly for a bit, but then if you double click it, eventually it'll load up not just the title, but also the video behind it. So now if I go and just like hit to cue that button, there I am, full screen, and I can play it. And then you can have the YouTube video there, I think without the ads, haven't fully tested that. But that's pretty cool that you can bring in a YouTube video so easily. One of the things I love about VLC is that you can just dump in videos, and it's such a robust player that if you got all sorts of weird formats, like it should just play it. And network streams, you could, I guess, sort of like bring in an NDI camera over network stream. Up the top here, you're going to have your video playback. So let's go to Coastal USA. Each video that I click, it's going to show me the duration, 20 seconds. And if I'm playing it, then that's going to show me the time that's left. This Q button actually kills the green screen. So at the moment I've got a green screen up, which is why I didn't use it coming back in here. It's because the H2R uses green screen graphics. And so trying to get the most out of the one connection is using Chroma on H2R and then killing that when you want to start the VLC playback. I've actually got a shortcut for a DVE picture-in-picture here. So if you wanted to bring up that, then you can either do the top or bottom. You can also, it's customizable. Along here, we've got the key buttons are also carried across. I've tried to replicate this as much as possible. The key on button is not here, but you can access that by a long press on the key. So if I wanted to, I could either auto this to air and back, or I could just hold this and it'll push it on. Press it again and you'll see it's going to stay on because it's on both preview and program. So just say I'm presenting the camera here and then I have a video queued up that I want to talk about. I can have this auto roll button. So I'm talking about this video and I just want to play that, and that'll start right away and I can be discussing it. And then I can auto that off and bring that off screen. So very smoothly, I can bring on a video without having to like transition myself off screen entirely. Next up, we're going to look at H2R Graphics and how that has been implemented into this layout so that you can bring in motion graphics via a Chroma key. One of the fastest ways you can transition into H2R Graphics is actually by long pressing the stop button on the VLC. So just as long pressing the Q button is going to take you to the VLC page, the stop button is going to clear the VLC full screen. So you're going to get your desktop back. And if you long press it, it's going to load up the green screen and it's going to take you to the H2R page. So you're then ready to go. It's got a sample chroma here, so I can actually pick the chroma. There's nothing in there. So if I bring in a graphic, that'll just roll on. Just like within the software, you can turn on each of the H2R graphics with a toggle along the top. So I could turn on the logo, I could have a message come up, the ticker along the bottom. I could have a score. I can increase that if I want as people score. The timer, you can have a countdown to the start of a show, or you could be counting up as you like. You could pause that timer. You could start it again. There's also break and image functions within that. You can bring on your lower thirds, probably most importantly. There's 5 banks for that. If you need more, you could create more. And you can just fill your screen with graphics, which is great. And then when you want to get rid of them, just go hide all, and they're all off there. So what's great about that is with H2R, you can just jump into the software, type up a lower third, and change that very quickly on the fly. And then using the chroma key, animate that on and have a higher production quality than having to maybe like go into Photoshop, export that out, bring it into the downstream key. It's all about trying to be like quick and easy and fast. So just like before, you can control it with your key. So I can toggle it on and off if I want to see what it's like in the preview. I could put myself to preview as well if I want to then bring that on air, or I could auto fade that on or auto fade that off. Or if I have my shot set up and I just want to push the key to air, then I could long press that and it's going to push that across. Press it again, it's going to be red, and you can see that as I cut here, all of the graphics are going to stay on. That is an intense shot. All right. When you're done with that, you can hide all the buttons and they go away. And then when you're on the fly and just say you want to like show videos and also utilize motion graphics, this is where the stop and the Q button come in handy, because so the Q button is actually going to bring in VLC, which is going to load that up full screen. So now on the HDMI, I've got the videos queued up and I can play that, pause that. If I want to stop that, I can get back to my desktop and I could load up like a PowerPoint or something like that, and then long press the stop button. It's going to bring back in the chroma key, so I can have that set up and ready to go and bring on my things as I need it. So chances are you'll probably be using one or the other. Like at the moment, I can't use my green screen because it's being used for the chroma key on the H2R graphics. So in which case you might want to do something else, which in this case might be bringing on a downstream key instead. All right, next up, let's take a look at the key presets, because there's a whole lot within this layout that has been pre-built to make it really easy to create a different picture-in-picture than just the simple DVE that is in the ATEM control panel itself. So on your homepage, you've got these 4 key buttons, which are more of like executing. But if you want to set up the key, you can jump into the shortcut key here, which will then have 4 sub menus, which is the pre-built keys, the upstream key palettes, the fly key, and then your still media pool. Let's start on the presets. So all of these presets are toggles, and they're going to toggle between an A position and a B position. And once you've set that, you can actually run between A and B. So the first one is a pattern circle. At the moment, you can see it's on the top because it says so on the button. If I press it, it's going to change to pattern circle bottom. The next one is, there's 2 chroma key options here. One is going to put you on the bottom left and the bottom right. And so each time you do this, it's going to reset the A and the B so that you can run to A, you can run to B. Chroma box, which will actually fit you within a template. So if I go within this key presets, if we just jump out of that for a sec, let me jump back to this page, for example. All right, so within the template, and I can hit the box here, and it's going to pop me within this box. So as I move around, I'm going to be like just fully within that box. So, and this will be included within the templates that you can download. So the point of this is that you can use a green screen to create a picture-in-picture type effect within a PowerPoint presentation and not have it like go outside of the edges. And then this bottom row down here is all DVE effects. So you can do the left side or the right side. You'll notice with my PowerPoint presentation before that it uses a split down the middle. So this is where you could, where are we? Turn on your key. And then you could choose if you want a left side or the right side of frame, in which case you would, wrong way, you would move this way. So you could be presenting and have half the screen as your camera and half the screen as the PowerPoint presentation, or you could flip around the other side. So you could do your presenting here. The other way of doing this is the box, which is going to place, it's going to cut a box and move it to the left or the right. So this way is particularly good if you've got a guest on a program. So for example, if we go to the media pool, I'm just going to cycle through, I've got one of me here from a previous episode in the media pool. Just pretend that's coming in on like camera 3 is getting a Skype call or something in. That would be the key. So then I could hit select MP1 in this case, but perhaps it would be an actual camera. And then I can have me on air on the other side. All right, so we can go DVE picture-in-picture box. This is just an alternate sort of box cut. If you don't like the one that's like the pre-built one in the ATEM panel, you go up and the bottom. You can go a full picture-in-picture top and bottom. This can be useful if you wanted to fill this not with like a guest, but maybe like a video playback. And then the last two are DVEs that have been sized for the phone. So I'm actually recording this panel using my phone, but if I switch to input number 2, which is what the phone is on, and I can jump out of Filmic Pro like that, and I'll bring up my home screen here. So let's move the phone to the other side. All right, so just say I want to demonstrate something on the phone. I've just got the Apple Lightning to HDMI connection there and some power input to keep it running. And then I can bring up the phone as an inset, or this final button over here is going to push it to the edge of frame and frame it up like that. The next submenu of the key is the palettes, where you can control the Luma, Chroma, Pattern, and DVE. Luma is particularly good if you're working with a graphic in the media pool that has a pre-multiplied key. Under the Chroma, you can sample the Chroma. This is a toggle button here. As you toggle this button, it's going to take the key off air and put it into preview. At the moment it's sampled. If I go pick Chroma, what it's done is within the preview pane, it's brought up this box. And within the software, this is where you could go in and you could move that around and try and find a good spot. I'm going to come down here. You can go pick Chroma. And that's actually going to register that green screen point, and it's going to sample it and push it to line. So now this key is ready to go on air, and there I am now back on the screen. One thing to note is that this square is chosen within the software. The reason I did it like that rather than baking it into the macro is because that allows you the flexibility to go in and choose your point. And then when you're sampling the Chroma, it'll sample it to that point. It's not going to change that point, which is great. Maybe you just want to like set that in the middle, and then you've got a camera person who can like center frame a green screen, take a sample, and then away you go. So I'm just going to quickly sample this one again, get myself back on air. All right, the next one is a pattern, which is going to put a circle around me by default. Under here, under circle, you can actually toggle it to a diamond. That was probably the only other like shape that I could find that was sort of interesting and worthwhile. But certainly if you don't need a diamond, you can go in and like re-record just that one particular macro if you wanted like a grid or some bars or some sort of vertical wipe. Let's stick with the circle. When you select DVE, if you find yourself on a box or something and you want the full DVE, you can long press DVE and it'll reset it to the full. Under that, you've got box and phone, so you can toggle between those two. And then you've got the left side cut or the right side cut. So for example, if you wanted to be demonstrating something on the software here, I could just slide this way And so I could be presenting on camera 1 here, and then the key is coming in on HDMI 4, which is the right side of the computer screen. Let's just pull up some funky colors. I'm just going to do a box within the software. Like with the key selection, the color has not been set. So if you want to set your own color, then you can do that. So border on, border off, wax on, wax off. And then so you can add on a shadow or a border or pull them off. These 4 purple buttons are mask buttons. The first one is just toggling the mask on and off. So with the mask turned on, you can choose what type of mask you want to apply to the chroma or to the pattern or to the luma. I've got full, or I've got a box cut. This has actually cut me into the box that we had before, which is handy if you want to then place that particular center cut on the left or right side of frame. You've got a left and right cut if you just want to do one or the other side. And then I've got trim 1 and trim 2. You can see it's just fine tuning the edge of frame, because if I turn off the mask, I've still got that background that I need to cut out. But trim 2 is a little more severe and trim 1 is a bit wider. So trim 1's enough to cut out the background, and I'm going to keep it wider so I've just got a bit more elbow room and I'm not like missing an arm. If I go over here, or if I come closer, like see how that's starting to look like you lose the effect. But back here, kind of looks like I'm sitting in a room, which is great. Okay. So next up is the flying key. This is one of my favorite ones because you can take all of that palette creation that we did in the Upstream key, and then you can control the position, size, the rate of transition, and the mask. So under the preset, when I tap this, it's actually setting the A and the B position. So now under fly, I can position that where I want. So I could go this corner, that corner, could do in the center, and I can change the size. You got 3 presets, which are 33%, 75%, and 100%. If I press and hold 33%, it's actually going to jump smaller until it goes off to 0. It's actually 0%. This size button, 75%, if I hold that, it's going to go to 50%, and the 100% goes the other way. So we've got 100, 125, 150, 200. So what's the point of that? Let's go Media Player 1. We're going to bring up a picture of the city. So now I've just got a shot of New York loaded up in there. I'm going to load that into the key. I don't actually want this circle. I'm going to want the DVE, and I probably want that full. And then under the flying key, I'm going to want to center that, make it 100%. When you switch palettes, sometimes it remembers the last input. So that was on, I'm going to select Media Player 1 for the input. I'm going to set that as A, and then I want to make this kind of noticeably bigger. Maybe I want to move it over there so we get a zoom in to New York City. I'm going to set B. I'm then going to just change my rate to half a second so I can jump back to A, and then make it 10 seconds. So now when we run to B, we're going to get this nice zooming effect in on the city, which you could have for a still like I've got here, or you could actually use that for a camera angle if you wanted to have a slow zoom in. So let's see how we would do the same thing with me. If I go back here, I'm just going to change my media input to Upstream key input to camera 1. Let us go to A. So I've got to be kind of over here. So I've got this slow zoom out happening, and it just gives it a sort of digital effect if you're trying to get a little camera movement. That's the sort of thing you could set up, and you could also like add that to a macro to sort of play at the beginning of the show if you need to do that. Moving on to the position, what I've actually got is some visual representation of what works best for that position. So back under the preset, let's just say the box on the left and the right. Under the flying key, that's where you can move that to the left and the right. That's what it's pulling from. Under the preset, also maybe you've got the phone. And then under the flying key, if you press and hold that, it's going to bump it across. So it's going to go to the first position, which is actually the box position. But then if you hold it down, it's going to bump it across to where the phone is. Likewise, what is best for the pattern is this position, and you'll see the circle works well in terms of the spacing there. And then if you press and hold, it's going to bump it into the corner, which looks a bit off for the circle, but that's actually because it's designed for the DVE. So back to the DVE. So we're going to choose full. Let's select media player 1. And then under the fly, we can move that around by holding it down. So if you long press that, it's going to fit it to the corner. And that also happens to be the position for the chroma key. So as long as I have my mask on, then I'm getting rid of that. And I want to make sure that I'm not using the box, because I'm going to cut my arms off. I actually want to use this trim position, so I get my arms back in, and then I'm ready to present a sort of PowerPoint presentation. Likewise, under the preset, when you select this chroma on the left and the right, that's actually selecting the A position here, and it's selecting the B position there. So now these have been updated. So if I go run to A, it's going to be the first one, run to B, and then again I can go hold it down to run full. The reset fly to inner, reset fly to outer, this is just if you start getting creative and like set your own positions and you want to just like bring it back to the default. These are the two resets that do the fly. They don't change the actual like chroma key or that kind of stuff. It changes the position. The inner means like the inner one of this position, and the outer means the outer one of the box. So the chroma key and the DVE are quite good on the outer. So go reset to outer, B position and taking a snapshot, A position taking a snapshot, and then push it full. I can find where I am again. But now if I go run to A, run to B, it's just going to sort of line up the way that it should. Likewise, reset fly to inner. It's going to push me to the inner, but this is assuming that you're running a sort of like the pattern circle instead. So if I go to A and B, you'll notice there's like, this doesn't quite hit the bottom. That's because this is intended to use the pattern here. Over here is a toggle for your auxiliary channel. So when you're building something, often you want to be able to see it in the preview. If you're trying to find the edge, it's a bit smaller in the multi-view and you want to be able to find it. So it's just a way of like being able to get better visuals and jump around as you need. The last aspect of the flying key is this variation of the set A and the set B. This is to help build a sort of custom position. So let's just say we've got our A and our B position, but for some reason, like there's a little white thing, little white marker that I don't want to obscure here. I want to go a little bit to the right, but I don't want to go all the way to the B without having to jump into the software and control it. When I press this button, it's going to begin from where I am now, running to the B position. And then when I press it again, it's going to stop in that position. So it helps you build a sort of custom positioning. All right, let's give this a go. So hit the B, I'm off and away, and maybe I want to stop there. That is now my new B position. So if I go to A, that's A, and this is B. So it just helps you sort of like move the flying key around a bit without having to jump into the software and to sort of fine tune it beyond the presets that have been built in here. All right, next up is the downstream key and the media pool. So if you hit the still button here, you get your still store for your 20 graphics. And grab a still. So if I look to camera and smile, press the button, and in the media pool, oh, that was terrible. All right, smiling to camera, press the button, make sure those eyes are open. Still don't think that's a good shot. Let's give it another go. All right, hopefully that one's better. We'll stick with that. What I've got, you'll find this later, is under the settings, you actually go to media pool and it'll bring up in the Finder where they are stored. So for example, Capture 3. Oh yeah, I look a bit pained, but you know, we'll run with that. Actually, Capture 4, there we go. That's the one, that's better. Nice smile there. Okay, so you can grab that PNG, take it out, use it for something. I use this all the time on set if I'm not even using the ATEM as like a streaming device, but sort of like a media village. I can just like hit grab still and then send that off to the client if they want to like check a frame. Down this side, you've got your shortcut to get back to your flying key under here. Preset, fly, and still. Luma, if you want to jump onto the Luma palette, often like when you're in the graphics, you need to use the Luma. Your toggle, like you have on the home page, you can toggle back and forth with the arrows. They're going to update the still number and the net file number. You've got access to your key and your downstream key here. The key you're familiar with, we've been using that a lot. Remember, you can toggle the transition next on and off just by tapping it in the preview here. But if I want to pull it off air, I can long press it and it's pulled off. Press it again, it's off. Press it, it's on air. Now if I did a cut, it would go on, but it would also cut because it's yellow. It would come off next time I cut. So if I want to keep it on air, I'm going to long press to put it on air, press it again, and now it's going to be on all the time. When I'm cutting, it's going to stay on. In this demo, I've included a bunch of graphics of backgrounds, so you can play with them if they just sort of help you get situated. I've got two of me, one just like as though it's a Skype call in, one as though it's just a green screen if you want to like play with cutting that out. And then I've got a bunch of graphics as well. Okay, so here's one example of how you could use a key and a downstream key to create sort of maximum effect. So let's build the sort of scenario where you're speaking with a guest over Skype. If you look at my multi-view, I'm going to put myself into the preview. I'm going to select the upstream key onto channel 4, which is what the guest is going to be coming in. It's like a full screen over Zoom. I'm going to turn on the key. At the moment, I've got a half cut here. I'm going to use this preset panel here to do a center cut, and then I can move that key to the left or the right. Let's just go with that side. So now on camera 1, I have to physically move over to this. You can't actually, you're going to have this like dead space over here because there's only one mix effect. You can't like grab camera 1 and move it across. You have to do that yourself. So I'm going to turn on the key. So now here I'm trying like just frame up. So I've got a similar sort of position. All right. So what you've noticed with this is that I can only have one palette at a time. So because I'm using the DVE to push the zoom call across, I can't use my Chroma key anymore. So this sort of setup wouldn't work. You would need an actual like, background where you've like lit it and done it properly. Let's go into the still. Now what I want to do is find a way to bring some sort of graphics using the downstream key. So that's going to come over the top of what I've set up here on the preview side. So I actually have some 2-up boxes, which I just sort of made in Photoshop. I can load that into the media player. So then if I toggle downstream key, I'm going to turn that on. This is a Photoshop document that you could go in and sort of customize this. You could change the color, the gradient. You could make the cutout larger if you want. It's just an HD Photoshop file, which has been exported as a PNG. And so now I've set up this shot and it's a composite ready to go. So all I have to do now is hit cut, and then I'm on air chatting with someone, a guest presenter who's in a remote location. There's a couple more layouts that I've just got as a demonstration of the way in which you can use the downstream key. I've got a left solid, so maybe you just want to do like one lower third. You could bring that in. If I hold down the DSK, it's going to fade out. So maybe I want to say, hey, I'm David. Welcome to my show. This is what I've got for you today. We're chatting with this guest, and then I can take that off. Just going to toggle through a few other options that you can have. Instead of it being solid, maybe you want it to be clear, depending on your layout. Maybe you want to put them in as well. And there's a strip down the middle. Maybe you want both of them to have a solid box. Maybe you just want to chat normally and you want this like strip down the middle to help sort of separate the screen. And then I've got a little logo that way up the top. So you can have that, or maybe just a strip, or maybe just the logo. So the thing with the downstream key is that all of these graphics have to be 1920 by 1080 and exported as a PNG with an alpha channel into the media player. So it's a bit of a legwork. It's a bit of legwork to sort of get that going correctly, which is why the H2R Graphics that I showed you before is such a faster and easier option, because you can just type it in and you don't have to worry about like exporting things and moving them around. But that is an option if you're trying to like set up a two-shot like I've got here and you can't use your green screen for the H2R Graphics. Just say I'm finished chatting with this guest and I don't want to speak with them anymore. I could fade them off and move across. The other thing you could do is, of course, if you go back to your infinity and full, you could hold down the infinity key and they'll go away. So I could say, hey, I'm David, welcome to the show. Today we've got a really special guest, and hit B, bring them in. Hey, how you going? Yeah, really great to chat with you. And this is where I could hold down full if I want to go full screen with them. And then I could just cut between us. If I want to go back to B, I could position myself so I'm ready. And then, hey, chat, 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 chat. And then when you're ready, you can infinite zoom them out and away you go. Just some ideas to play with. All right, next up is audio, which is simple, but it's really effective because it means that you can control the input, your fader control, and your gain control. Under the audio menu button, it's going to take you to a page where along the bottom you can toggle between on and off, or if you hold it down, it's going to go audio follows video. I'm going to turn this one off. So if I play a video through VLC, you'll see it's coming up on the levels here and in the audio on the multi-view, but it's not actually coming through on the master yet because it's on audio follows video. But then if I go auto and fade across, then you'll be able to hear the music. So under the audio page though, if we want to control this, audio 4, we could just like fade it down a bit. Or if you want more granular control, just tap it and it'll go 1 by 1 decibel. You can reset it and it'll take it back to 0. So anytime you've moved it off 0, this is going to be highlighted here. So you can hit the reset button and it'll take the fader back to 0. If you want to do a fade out, you can actually hold it and it'll run it to infinity. Do a fade out to infinity. There we go, all the way down. Or if you want to bring it in, just hit that and it'll do a fade in to 0. The other thing is the fader button here. So we're on the fader panel at the moment, but perhaps you want to change the gain. So if you hit this button, these dials will change. So now you're getting the same control of like up or down, but you're affecting the input gain rather than the fader gain. What's great about this is that if you have made changes, so anytime you make a change, this is going to go yellow at the top here. And so you can see at a glance what channels have things affected. If you wanted to reset, you could just go through, tap them all like that. They're all back at 0 for the input. Same with the faders. If you've made any sort of adjustments, they're going to be highlighted yellow. And then if you want to reset them, just go through like that. All right, next up is the tally. One of the cool features about this setup is you can actually use a phone as a tally light. So if I go to the camera within my Stream Deck, I can go to the settings and see how it's picked up. Oh, got to get in the right spot. It's done a QR code and it's saying open up this website in Safari, which is the emulator. I can actually like change all of these buttons, or a better way of doing it would be like that. At the moment, I'm just doing video and power out here, but the actual control of it is coming through Wi-Fi. So I could unplug this and I could walk around a venue and I could select whatever input I want to choose. I could cut like that. So it gives you very diverse control. One of the ways you can use this is actually as a tally. So under the plus sign here, I'm going to go to tally, and that's going to just bring up the emulator page, which then I can zoom in on. So just say you're camera 1, you probably want to keep your brightness all the way up and turn off the auto sleep function and set the orientation of the lock to just be there so it doesn't change as you move around. But now essentially you've got a pretty easy tally light, and you can see as I'm cutting on and off, it's going green or red depending on whether camera 1 is in the program or the preview. Or if I cut to something else, like put the preview into channel 4, then camera 1's not on air at all, and it goes black. Using the emulator means that you can bring up the control interface within a tablet, a phone, or even a computer browser. So if you don't own a physical Stream Deck, then this is a way that you can download Companion straight away and start trying it out on a web browser, or even like load it up in a tablet. And you can, at a touch of a button, have a touchscreen panel. Just using a mouse, I can click through and control this all the same. I could hit the black, C2, bars, I can do an auto fade. And even if you do have a Stream Deck, then this is a way to double your interfaces. You could have the physical console that you're cutting with, and then maybe on a computer or a tablet, use the emulator to have another panel open. For recording and streaming, these two buttons here will take you through to a single page. On this side is the recording. You can record like I am now. Hit stop to stop it. You can have different takes if you want to change your file name as you go. Switch disk, show you the time remaining in hours and minutes. And then if you want to stream, you can go live or take it off air. And then hitting those buttons will take you back to the menu. I just wanted to get something that was like a double tap away from the main menu so that you're not accidentally starting a stream or stopping a stream. Next up is Stream Deck integration, because even though this is all built in within Companion, it's running on Stream Deck software, and you can actually combine those two systems together. The button just under the top left one has been dedicated in this layout to access your transition from one profile to the next. So in this case, if I hit that, it's going to bounce me over to one of 4 menus. I've got a zoom, resolve, Chrome, and then a companion settings. So by default, I've taken it to Chrome because that's what I'm using to present. You can navigate forwards and backwards. If you want to bring in your slides on Google Chrome, first, last, you can escape out of it. So I'm going to start this slideshow. So this is all within Chrome. So for example, if you wanted to tab across to something else you're presenting, here's my YouTube channel. It's just a Chrome browser. And the other thing I've got is a toolbar button here. It just gets rid of that, makes it all very clean. Or you can pin the tab. There's a more section. If you need to go to, let's go back up. Let's just go back to our presentation. Let's make that sure it's full screen. Under this more button, if you need to jump to a particular slide, you can just hit that. So 17, I don't remember what that was. Application downloads, great. So if I change my background to be the PowerPoint presentation and then hit this Chroma box, it's actually going to pop me inside of a box which has been pre-designed within the template. And that's included within this download just so that you can find the right size. And because of the mask, it means that you can move around and you're not going to go outside of the frame. We're also maintaining access to our run keys. So at the moment I'm on A, but if I wanted to go to B, I can move that over there if I needed to quickly set up myself on another side of a presentation. And I can also run full if for some reason I wanted to be full screen behind that. This home key is designed to bounce you out into whatever your home profile is. The settings key here has a couple of like system volume changes. You can launch apps. Live view for, I've got a DSLR. If you're connecting the camera to the computer, then you can make sure it stays on. If I hit that, it'll turn off, which is good if I want to like save the sensor and the battery life and that kind of stuff. And then I can press that again, turn the camera back on, and in it comes. Sometimes when you switch apps, the Stream Deck interface will switch profiles. And if you want to keep it on the one profile that you're on, you can hit the lock key. And that basically brings up the Stream Deck window and then minimizes it. So it's sitting there and then it doesn't switch profiles. I can unlock it by opening it up and shutting the window. And now this will jump profiles when I do that. But I want to keep this locked because I like to know where I am. I've got a button to like launch all of the ATEM apps just to get them all going. I've got a media pool button to find the stills that were taken from the grab frame. And then I've got a QR code so that a camera operator can come in with their phone, point it at that, and like go straight into the emulator to get the wireless tally. Within the Resolve tab, you've got a couple of navigation features for if you're on a video call with a client and you're doing maybe like a remote editing session. You've got a full screen key. If you want to jump into that, you can hit play, you can stop, you can rewind. If you hit play several times, you can fast forward. Basically, it's just JKL editing. So using my macros, I'm able to turn on my Chroma setting. When I meet a client, I can be chatting to them with a green screen in the background, but it looks just a lot cleaner. And then if I want to chat to them about something within the edit, I can hit this full screen button, which will turn into picture-in-picture and reveal the editing timeline. If I need to go and play it full screen, I can do that. And if I want to pull myself off, I could actually just go infinity and I'll pull off, or I could bring myself back on, or I could just pull myself off by taking the key off altogether or putting the key on. And then if you want to jump to the home, just hit home, or the end, you can go to the end. Just frame navigation, jumping up and down through cuts and coming out of full screen. And if you have a secondary HDMI connection, so you're coming in, say, through like input number 3, you could hit the clean feed out. And then if we get into a discussion, I just want to bring the attention back to person rather than having all the graphical interface there, I can hit the picture-in-picture full button, bring myself back up so that there's no distraction of the timeline and I can just chat. Alternatively, if I turn off my key like that, I could just cut between this. So I could be either presenting to them on my main camera or else sending them a picture of the timeline here. All right, let's chat about zoom. Okay, at some point you're obviously going to need zoom. So there's a page for that. You can still control the key features. You can have access to participants, chat. You can do a record or resume. Within the more button, you can start a meeting, join, schedule, record to the cloud. And if I had people in this call, I could put it in between gallery view or speaker view and then toggle between pages. I can mute my microphone within Zoom. So you'll see down here, that's muted. If I click it again, it will be unmuted. Same with the camera. I can turn my camera off or I can turn my camera on. I've got screen share, push to talk. Can switch cameras if I had more than one camera attached. And I still have access to my preview row so that if I'm presenting on camera, but then I wanted to show something on screen, I could transition across to that, show that angle, and then come back to me speaking to the client. So just say you have a Zoom caller coming in through HDMI 4, you've got easy access here to hide the control panel and to make that full screen so that very quickly they're just full screen coming in, clean feed. And then when you're done, hit the end button and it'll close out the meeting. All right, so that gives you a really good overview of what can be achieved with this layout within Companion and Stream Deck. I've got 2 more videos in this series to help you get the most out of Companion. The first one was this demonstration of what this can actually do. The next video, I'm going to go into how to install the programs and profiles that you're going to need step by step so that you get an understanding of all the parts that need to come together to make this work. And then finally, we're going to do a bit of custom building of Companion buttons because there's so much power to create exactly the sort of like macros and programs that you want. And so I think by showing you, you're going to totally get it and understand how to pull it together. So for now, make sure you go check out the website, davidjoshuaford.com/production/companion. Grab your free copy and I'll see you in the next video when we're going to look at installing it.